Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rangers Review. Rangers Review Heart and Hand crossover, Adamski. We are going across both networks with so much to talk about, so much interesting tactics to discuss. Russell Martin as the Rangers manager. So we thought we'd double up and bring it to both audiences at the same time. If you've been living under a rock, Russell Martin is the Rangers head coach. He was unveiled today at time of recording, Thursday, and spoke at his press conference alongside Kevin Thelwell, Patrick Stewart. We're going to get into some topics such as what type of manager is Martin? Why are Rangers going for a head coach instead of a manager? Does it matter that he's not won any trophies and he has a low win percentage? Or does the fact that he can implement a style of play matter just as much? And if that topic boils your blood, then we're going to get into it. So don't worry. Adam, how are you? And firstly, do you think that Russell Martin, did he speak just well or did he speak very well at his press conference?
It's tricky, isn't it? I'm not sure which cliche is the worst. I would say he spoke very well. Yes, very well.
Okay, like that. Fair enough.
Yeah, I think just I guess to sort of just confirm what you said there. There's obviously lots and lots of doubts about all aspects of this at the minute, but for us, I think we'll focus on what we think will happen on the pitch, and like you said, it's certainly going to be quite interesting from that point of view.
Yeah, so let's start with, we'll get into what Martin had to say, but let's start with this notion that Rangers have appointed a head coach instead of a manager. I'll read you out just a segment of what stood out to me from Kevin Thelwell earlier today in the club's official confirmation. Speaking about Russell Martin, he said, through the many conversations Patrick and I have had with Russell in recent weeks, he's emerged as the outstanding candidate. He comes to Rangers with hard-earned experience. His time in the Premier League has sharpened his approach, both tactically and personally. He's better for it, and we believe that will translate into the kind of leadership and performance our supporters expect. His teams play dominant football. They control the ball, dictate the tempo, and impose themselves physically. They press aggressively and work relentlessly off the ball. These are all characteristics that we believe are required to be successful at home, away, and abroad. To start with that, Adam, that to me, I wrote a piece a few weeks ago about Rangers' interest, more specifically in Ancelotti because he hadn't managed, effectively making the point that, look, you can argue the pros and cons of this, but more and more clubs are appointing managers or head coaches, not on the basis of I've won X, Y, and Z, like a Jose Mourinho. There's a reason he's now in Turkey and not at the top of the game, even though he's won everything there is to win and done so repeatedly. But more and more clubs are looking at what managers can do. And Vincent Kompany at Bayern Munich, who's just won the Bundesliga, got knocked out of Europe, but still a successful season winning the league. He's a depiction of that because he was not given the job, although he was not first choice for Bayern by all accounts. He was not given that job on the basis of what he did with Burnley in the Premier League. He was given that job because of two key factors. He was a bit of a Guardiola disciple, and he had the authority and track record of implementing this style of play, and he had the leadership qualities to implement it. And both of those things are really important because style of play is such a buzzword. But you see, if it was easy, everyone would do it. Every manager would do it. And there's a reason, again, that more and more clubs are kind of prioritizing, especially as they have other individuals around them, like a sporting director, CEO, to maybe be the frontman in other areas. More and more clubs are prioritizing this aspect. This is a continuation of that. It's a change from what Rangers have done in the past. The fact he's the head coach, even the fact, the small detail that stood out to me today that I thought wasn't deliberate, was just interesting. The last three managers have been unveiled in the Blue Room. It's very much been about the manager. This is the man that's going to finally reverse Rangers' fortunes. This felt a bit different today, not least that the press conference was elsewhere, which again, I'm not saying that was deliberate, but it just kind of stood out to me as a little bit representative. So what I'm getting to in a long-winded way of saying is, this is different, isn't it? We're seeing Rangers approach something differently, and I guess we're going to find out if it's going to work.
Yeah, and I think it is different. I think change can be daunting. There are past examples of this not going well for Rangers, but as I've said quite a few times, most big clubs or most modern clubs adopt this model. Rangers not doing this doesn't make us right. I don't think anybody could say Rangers sporting decisions over the last 3 years have been up there. So there's almost an element of you might not agree with this, and I'm not talking about people specifically. I'm talking about the roles and the profiles of sporting director and head coach. That is standard now. Rangers are behind the curve in that
Yeah.
sense. So the modernisation off the pitch will probably get the focus, but I think we can see that here as well, and I think that's fair. Company's always the one that the example is of, I guess, because of his stature. But Enzo Maresca, I think, is probably more of a
Yeah.
maybe more of a not pertinent example, but just as impressive. I think because it was the same thing. But he's went and did really really well with Chelsea. Bayern Munich, with the greatest of respect, are winning that league more often than they're not. Therefore, it's almost it's par to win the league, I guess, and it's not it's a
Okay.
disaster if you don't. Whereas with Chelsea, I don't know if many people would have really said they'd have been where they were at the end of the season. They were doing very very well for a point, looking like they might even go a little bit higher than they did. Obviously, got their success as well in Europe. So that example, I think, is really pertinent as well. That was someone who was bold, took a job,
Yeah.
and got the Chelsea job for the same reasons that we're talking about. So it is a thing, and that's why I sort of rail against the he failed at Southampton thing
Yeah.
for Russell Martin. Yes, he did, and he did fail. There is an element there of not changing your principles, but playing for or managing Southampton, who are at the bottom of the toughest league in the world, is not the same job as managing Rangers.
No.
There's just polar opposites. You don't have that skill set. We were all commending Leeds for thinking about potentially moving on Daniel Farke because of that same reason. It's a different skill set to get promoted from the Championship as it is to get stay clear of relegation in the Premier
Yeah.
League. So I don't think you can really compare too much of it. I also rail against, and it sounds like Martin rails against. I also rail against this inflexibility thing because
Yeah.
it's not just a manager, as we're talking about now. It's a club led thing. Southampton last summer stuck with Russell Martin because of the brand of football that he plays, because they as a club felt like that was the right thing to do. A manager like that won't be able to in these new structures, won't be able to just turn it around and say, actually, I'm just going to play 4-4-2 and have
Hmm.
lots and lots of big strong players, because the club's scouting strategy, etc., isn't set up to do that anymore. It's longer term stuff. So he was doing what he did with the buy-in of the
Yeah.
club. Unfortunately, results then lead them another way. But look at who they've brought in now. Will Still, who's in the same mould there. So that's what they agree is the right way forwards. So Russell Martin not adapting. I think he did a little bit. I think he became a little bit less aggressive with his defensive line, but it was too little, too late. So I sort of rail against the inflexibility piece because there's a wider
Yeah.
picture there and a wider club-led ethos that it ties into.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get into that because he discussed that today at his press conference. I thought pretty interestingly, but yeah, we're in agreement that even a good comparison, I think, is Tottenham, who when they appointed Mourinho or Conte, it was that kind of win now. We need a manager who's got a track record of winning, and if they do move on from Postecoglou, the names linked, there's someone like Iraola at Bournemouth or Thomas Frank, and again, not managers, because football's changed so quickly, who have a track
Yeah.
record of winning trophies. And people will
Yeah.
turn around with Martin and say, and listen, some of this is valid. I think we're approaching this from a point of view of trying to understand how the thinking has changed. Because number one, what Rangers have done in the past few years has not worked at all. I mean, I've been doing this
No.
job under 4 years, and this is the fourth unveiling I've gone to. So that kind of tells you everything from a
Yep.
consistency point of view. Martin is not getting this job just as company to Bayern, whatever, Maresca to Chelsea, Arteta to Arsenal. He's not getting this job on the basis of results. And
No.
again, people will be screaming at their screen there saying, well, Rangers is about results. Yeah, of course it is. But you look at the last few months, Barry Ferguson spoke about that regularly. No one is going to command, I would argue, authority like him. No one is going to understand the significance to win like him. But that doesn't mean that it's going to translate into winning right away. And increasingly, clubs are moving to this model of let's get a structure that's long term that protects us a bit, and let's form an identity because long term this is going to work. Now, to explore why that identity works, Adam, you only have to watch Rangers over the course of the past year. But just to finalise that point, Martin is getting this job because They see him as someone who has authority, who has good man management, and can give players an overall identity that gives them solutions. So we spoke about that in regards to, as we'll get into, flexibility. So there's freedom within the system, but there's a system. Rangers have been a team without an identity for so long. They only had good games last season when they didn't dominate the ball. And they do have a manager now who wants the ball. So getting that all out the way, hopefully that, from our understanding, gives people a bit of context as to why Rangers are going for an unproven manager at this level. Where do you want to start? Tactical flexibility and what that means? Will we get into what Martin had to say on that, or have you got anything else to jump in on there?
The only thing I would add on before we move on to that point is, I think there is a recognition now that big clubs need to play football in a attacking way. It's not realistic for clubs who dominate the ball to say, I don't want the ball, because in Scotland, I've seen crazy theories about Rangers shouldn't play possession football. I mean, okay, we could try that, but
what else?
No one's going to come. Well, everyone is going to give us the ball. So what do you suggest we do? Shouldn't we get very, very good at playing with the ball? That sort of makes more sense to me than just saying no, we don't want it and just kicking it back to them. So, big clubs are doing this. There's no one shitting their way to consistent league titles in the top 5 leagues or even top 10 leagues anymore. It is, you can rail against it if you like, but it is all about attacking football, whether it's different flavours of it, whether it's counter pressing in leagues that maybe there will be a little bit of teams coming out and attacking, whether there's full possession, like we've said with Arteta, Guardiola. That's how teams are playing now. So that's why these managers will be in demand at those teams. And that's why I think Rangers have gone this approach. They recognise that is the best way to win for the club, what the club want to be, and also for the challenges that they face in the league.
Yeah, and you can argue about whether it's going to work, whether Martin will get buy-in, whether he's the right man for this job. But I fundamentally think that the approach of getting a manager who can coach a certain style is the right avenue to go down.
Yes,
there's no risk-free
definitely.
appointment at the moment. I don't mind an unpopular decision being made because we've seen what's happened with popular decisions in the past. All I would say from a Scottish football point of view is, and I've made this point on a few podcasts, Celtic do not win leagues by playing attritional football.
No.
Even when they go to different venues. Are some pitches difficult? Yes. Is there a physical element that you've got to blend it with? Yes. But you see, if you're a Rangers player out there at Ibrox this season, what would you rather? Would you rather a manager who, again, hypothetically speaking, if Martin can make this work, would you rather a manager who gives you the solutions with the ball, or one who coaches a really transitional game, or maybe doesn't give you an identity at all, but allows you to kick the ball up the park quicker? Like, I'm in total agreement with you. This is the route they need to go down. The difficulty is Celtic have better players and they still have more money. So how do you bridge that gap and get buy-in in the same period of time?
Totally agree. Yeah.
Okay, let's get into a little bit of what Russell Martin had to say. I'll kind of split this into 2 chunks. Firstly, more specifically on what his identity is. Then we'll get into more tactical flexibility within a system. Martin said, ask what fans could expect to see from his team. I think my philosophy is based on 2 things, really, without going into all the detail and talking about the technical detail. It's based on courage and intensity. Courage to take the ball, to express yourself in the final third, and that's not always easy in front of 50,000 people with big expectation. In fact, it's tough. It's one of the toughest things to do in football, hopefully with clarity in what is expected of the players individually and the relationships on the pitch as a team. Hopefully that clarity will help them to play with some courage and express themselves with a level of freedom within the structure where they can go and meet players that people, be players that people enjoy watching. They're going to have to take the ball sometimes in some moments in areas of the pitch that may be deemed risky, but they'll always have solutions and options. But it's to play the game in the opposition half, to dominate territory as much as we possibly can, and then to work out solutions not to break people down, to hurt them and stop transition. He continues, I never really had to speak about the style of play thing until we got into the Premier League. And then people who haven't watched our team or my team for 4 or 5 years only became obsessed with that. So I'm not going to talk about it all the time. I want to avoid that because things will change within that. And we've learned a lot from that period at Southampton. But the concept of the game will always be the same, to try and dominate the ball, to dominate territory, and to do that, you have to be really aggressive about it as well. And we'll get onto that, the specifics Martin discussed about off-ball intensity and why that's so important to his style of play too. What stands out to me there, Adam, is dominate territory, music to my ears, because again, I think that was the underpinning of why Clermont's football didn't work. It's so transitional, up the pitch, down the pitch. The best teams at the moment mitigate the variables, and they do that by keeping the ball most of the time. Again, Guardiola's thing, the best form of defense is with the ball. But the other thing that stood out to me, if I can just get it there, yes, when Martin says that no one really spoke about the style of play till he got to the Premier League, he probably had the worst squad in the Premier League. And you can argue about whether a lack of flexibility to not stop playing out in the Premier League. You can argue about whether that is right or wrong. My top line thought on that is it's not really going to be an issue up here because teams aren't going to pressure that aggressively. And if teams pressure aggressively, I would probably think that Martin's style, build-up style, is going to be better than the kind of pressing teams he comes up against. So the point he's making there is, look, he was able to coach a team that was possession dominant, played some good stuff, but people only really focused on the terrible goals they conceded in the Premier League. And I think Rangers have looked at it and went, well, what's more comparable at Ibrox? The type of football you play in the Championship, and the ability to implement that quite quickly, or the struggles you had at the bottom end of the Premier League. And I think they're taking a bit of a risk, they're taking a gamble that that's not going to be as much of an issue up here. Is that fair?
It is, yeah. And I would go as far as saying it's less of a risk than the top end of the Championship as well, because I know Southampton were one of the favourites down there. There's half of that league potentially will be coming and having a go at you, whether it's home or away. And not everyone is going to sit, even if it is the sort of lower end of the table teams, they're not going to sit in at home and away against you, which we get here. So I completely agree. It goes back to, I guess, the point that we made earlier on. This sort of style of play that we're talking about here is partially mitigated by being at a club like Rangers, who will, just by virtue of being Rangers, have 60+% possession of the ball. So in a way, his baseline is done for him by the opposition. He doesn't have to fight to have that possession of the ball. So I think there's a platform there for sure. I like the aspects. I understand the style of play thing. No, again, for a club like Southampton coming up there, style of play is going to be used as a negative when things go wrong. I think that's fine. I like the fact that he's not wanting to talk about style and philosophy and things like that. He'll leave it to us to, I guess, sort of try and figure out what it is. But he did say, I've watched a couple of things with him, and he actually said he's been too flexible at times. I think you see that. We'll come on to, I guess, the evolution of formations and things that he's seen through, certainly Swansea, Southampton first year, and then Southampton the second year. There has been a bit of that. But I think the two key things for me that we've wanted ever since we've been doing these shows is patterns in the final third. What are you going to do once you get there? And that intensity off the ball to win the ball back in the first place. Those are the two key things, I think, for this league. That's what Celtic do. I know we don't want to use those comparisons all the time, but that is valid. That is the comparison. Winning the ball back quickly, when the other team is disorganised, and then a plan once you win the ball back is key. Similarly, that build-up piece, team's going to sit in. Yes, we're going to be patient and wait for a gap, but once a gap comes, go, and we attack through, and we've got clearly rehearsed patterns. Those are the two keys to success in this league for me.
Yeah, I just think it's a total myth, and myself and friend of the show, Johnny McFarlane, argue about this on and off air.
Would we say friend?
Scottish, my friend. Would you throw me off? It's a total myth that you need to be a really physical team in Scotland. You just don't.
The example is staring us in the face that no, you don't.
Yeah, you don't. Like, okay, Celtic have physical players in that they have, like, Maeda is obviously a really strong physical player. The distances he can run, and Carter Vickers is a big defender. But these leagues have not been won, whether it be Postecoglou or Rodgers in recent years. These leagues have not been won by sitting in and winning the battle first. There is an element of that, but if you're a really good football team, it's still football when you go away to Rugby Park, Pittodrie, whatever it may be. And I'd argue actually Scottish football is becoming a little bit more outward facing, in that breaking down a low block is important, but the biggest issue Rangers have had is, can you dictate the tempo of the game with the ball? And they have not been able to do that. So you again, you can argue, is Martin going to be able to do that? Myself and Derek were speaking about it on the podcast the other day. And with a possession-heavy team, you get a lot of superlatives and cliches. It struggles to break down a low block. The play's ponderous. And there will be any style. There's going to be elements that are bad. There's going to be some bad games, I'm sure. But if you have commitment to an overarching idea of, okay, finally Rangers have a coach who wants the ball, who wants 60% of the ball, I think that's a decent starting point.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Tactical flexibility. This is what Martin had to say on that rough point. He says, we've managed 3 clubs. The teams will look different, will look really different, all with the same concept of the game, to try and be aggressive with the ball and without it, because you can't have one without the other. They've all played with different formations, different shapes, different personnel, different people making up different positions in terms of what they have. So we are here to win, and we'll do that in the best way we possibly can within a similar concept to the game, which is to be dominant with the ball, which I think is what Rangers fans will expect. But to be really aggressive, really intense, really passionate, really hard-working first and foremost, before anything with the ball has to come. That we're here to win, and we're here to do it the best way we possibly can. And just finally, I think my job is to give the team, the fans, what they identify with and feel proud of, and they go into a game knowing what to expect. A team that's going to give everything to run as hard as they possibly can. I think that's one thing that gets overlooked at the teams we've managed. They always run the most out of possession, the most sprint distance, the most high-speed running, because they have to if they want to dominate the ball and to be aggressive. And again, not to continue to quote Guardiola, but it's just kind of like everything flows. He's the most influential figure in football in the last 20, 30 years. And asked to summarise his philosophy in one sentence, famously said, I want the ball. And everything else flows from that. So he's went to, when he started at City, he would only play with, Barcelona, used false nines. Now he's back to an out-and-out target man. Famously didn't want to work with Ibrahimovic in the past, but now has Haaland. We've seen him use midfielders as inverted fullbacks, but also then use 4 centre-backs across the back line as they go to win the Champions League. The concept is the same, but the specifications are different. So what I think that will look like with Martin is Rangers are not gonna play direct football, but you might see them do different shapes and different profiles here and there. And that can be a bit of a lot. Don't get me wrong, when he was in the Premier League, Martin was dogmatic and stuck to the script and kept going. But as mentioned, I don't think that'll be as much of an issue here. What else do you think in terms of freedom within a framework and that balance of having an overall ideal? That doesn't mean you only have one formation and one system, but everything flows from that kind of base concept.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think we still, and even I'm probably quite guilty of this as well, still being wedded to this formation does this and this formation will do that. And it's not really a thing. Remember Arteta's famous, we used, 33, 36 formations within this within this game, which is obviously taking it to ridiculous extremes. But I can sort of understand that most teams, or all teams, have a shape in possession and a shape out of possession as a bog standard, which is different. So when we talk about formations, we talk about in possession. But as you've said there, regularly, even back to Cruyff, switching from 3 at the back to 4 at the back, the most dogmatic person in modern European football. It is a concept. The concept is I want the ball. The concept is I am going to play structured football. I'm going to keep the ball and I'm going to bide my time. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be slow. I'm going to bide my time until I see the picture in front of me that is optimum for how I want to attack to get forwards. That's sensible, I think. Build up, you see from Guardiola. Guardiola is not afraid to go long. If the gap is there, they'll go vertical if they have to. It's not just about passing the ball side to side and then just crossing it into the box. That is not what it's about. It is varied in that sense. Possession is a means of control. You want to dominate the ball. You want to dominate tempo. I see a lot of people saying we don't want possession, as I've said, but also we need to be a team that presses instead. that's two different things. That's it's not two
Yeah.
different things. Sorry, I should say that's possession is when you've got the ball, and pressing is when you don't have the ball. So those things coexist. You wouldn't look at Guardiola at Barcelona and say they didn't press. They were the first team that I can remember to press in that way. When they got the ball, great, but they'd win it back out in 3 seconds and they'd go again. So it's two sides of the same thing. It could be one or the other, but it kind of can't be because, yeah, it's one's with the ball, one's without the ball. So, yeah, I think that's a key point as well. The adaptability piece, like we said, the concepts are there. He has become a little bit more pragmatic. He said himself, maybe the dark arts is something that he would probably like to see more of. Again, that's maybe more relevant to a team like Southampton at the bottom of the league, maybe more tactical fouling, all that sort of stuff. The attacking transitions, I think he at Swansea, I would say he was that dogmatic, pure possession type manager. And it was a little bit slow, but as he moved into Southampton and as he got better players, as the challenges got better, as he got closer to the top of the league, he has absolutely added that aggression and verticality and transitions into things. So that is adapting. That is adapting, but not getting away from your ideals, which are possession and tempo.
Yeah, and everything's a trade-off, isn't it? Everything, and managers who change formations 4 or 5 times, that's a trade-off too, because then players quite often don't have something to fall back on. And again, that Martin kind of referenced that it will this notion of we won't adapt to the opposition as much, which again I think is needed. I have what I feel will be an unpopular opinion in the Rangers review and Heart and Hand comment sections, but here we go. I think the best domestic football Rangers have played since Steven Gerrard left. And Gerrard was the last example of consistent squad building over a period of time, players getting added to give you different solutions. You think even back to Hadji and Roof the summer before the title win, just to give you different options in different areas. Relationships could form in parts of the pitch, Barisic, Kent and Kamara on the left and others elsewhere. Since then, it's just been chaos. New ideas here, new ideas there. The manager, more often than not, the dominant voice. And when you've had 4 of them in 4 years, of course, things are going to be confused. But I think the best domestic football played since Gerrard left was the 6 months Beale had before the summer transfer window. So forget the summer and the squad building and all the chaos and car crash at the start of that next season. But the kind of December, was it November? December to May.
Yep.
We couldn't quite get over the line in Old Firm games. It was a strong Celtic team, and people's memories of that era are understandably not fond because of how it ended. But Rangers were ball dominant for a time. They won games away from home, had a pretty strong record. Took them a while to have a defeat. I think the issue has been that there's been no consistency. There's been no structure above a manager to make it work. And again, to go back to the point we had at the top of the show, we've not seen this sporting director and head coach in a long, long time. So therefore, it's all been trying to make something work short term without really the tools to do it. And players from a previous manager or a previous regime. I can't remember the point I was going to make at the end of the Beale argument.
I agree with you, but I agree that was good. Again, obviously, I can hear Martin Ramsey boring me to death in the background by saying the pressure was off. Blah blah blah. He won't listen to these, or he'll pretend he doesn't listen to them. But yeah, but I would agree because you had in that team you had Sakala, Tillman, Morelos, Cantwell, Raskin, doing quite well. You still had Tavernier, I guess, or the last dying embers of his up and down the wing. So yeah, I would agree. But again, that probably comes back to the point that we've not yet spoken about, and we probably should because it is still the most important thing as the players. He had players in there. Sakala was much maligned. I was a fan, I have to say. Yes, there was scatterbrain moments, more than one, but he offered something that we probably haven't had, which is, I guess, that burning pace. He was pretty decent. I thought in terms of link-up play at times, he was a good finisher on occasion, but he was available all the time, which is something that we've not had. So, but again, he helps enact that style. And then I think personally, it's been well worn now. But the big issue then over that summer was bringing in players who just didn't seem to suit what I thought that style was going to be. And it was let's bring in slow ball players. who will try and dominate possession without really a thought about how we're going to get beyond, how we're going to break things down. So that is pertinent, I think, because we can talk about Russell Martin, we can talk about his style of play, we can talk about the players that we have at the minute that might get a bit of an uptick, and there are some of them. Some maybe more obvious than others, but the key thing is giving the manager players that can implement what he wants to do. And that now is
Mhm.
that's now different to last year, where you could argue Philip Clement never got the players that he would have wanted. Whether that would have worked or not, I don't know. But it's bringing in the players that are going to give the club what they need over the next 3-4 years, and then allowing Russell Martin to giving Russell Martin the best base to then go and implement that. So I think that's huge. The players are more important than formation. Formation gives you the platform, the attacking coaching, the attacking patterns, etc., get you into the positions, but ultimately you need the players that can execute, and that's not something that we've had for 3 or 4 years.
No. Anything else we need to cover? What else have we not discussed? Like, the players is right, because you and Southampton shows that you can have great ideas and be a purist, but you need the quality to enact that, and Rangers still have work to go on that front. But is there anything we'll get into over summer? What formation might it look like? Who's going to benefit once the squad starts to take a little bit of shape? But is there any other burning points that you have to get off your chest, Adam?
Maybe nothing too in depth, because I didn't actually believe this was potentially happening until Tuesday. So I've watched a little bit of all the clubs. But yeah, over the summer we'll get Ali involved as well. Maybe a couple
Yes.
of special guests, and talk about how things have gone at those clubs that we spoken about, how things have improved, the type of we could roughly cover, I guess, the type of roles that we think we might see. I put something out on Twitter the other day about that, and then further down the line, once we see who's coming in, what type of players that we think we might be able to improve. Is improve the word? Be able to get a turnout of potentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those will come. Hopefully, we'll do more of those. Hopefully, we're inundated with signings as well to start talking to. That would be great. But yeah, so I think in terms of profiles that I think you'll see from a Russell Martin team for sure, but
Yeah.
also teams like Kevin Thelwell says, dominant
Yeah.
football, control the ball, dictate the tempo, impose themselves physically, pressing aggressively, working off the ball. Type of roles that you'll see. For me, we probably need centre backs. The only thing I would say on the point from a while back in terms of the physicality piece, I do think we need more physicality than Russell Martin's centre backs have potentially had. They've been sort of ball progressors first.
Yeah.
I think that you have to be aware of the league. And I think there are elements, I've said this before, certain players that we've had, if you put them in a well balanced, well structured team that plays to their strengths, they could potentially have mitigated some of their weaknesses. But I don't feel like centre half is a candidate for that right now. So I would like to see more
Mhm.
physicality in there, as well as players that can play. Unfortunately, having both those sides costs a bit of money, so it'll be interesting to see what we do there. Fullbacks, I don't think we'll see too much of a change in terms of the styles that we're used to. I think we'll see one fullback who's maybe better in possession and can cut inside, either as a inverted fullback or maybe staying back as a third defender. And we'll see another fullback who is more of a sort of modern, if you like, or maybe it's not modern now. Fullback who can get forwards and cross into the box. I think we'll see two styles there. In terms of how those work. I'm not sure what you think about that from a not necessarily from a Russell Martin point of view, but just
Yeah.
from when we're talking about ball dominant teams.
Yeah, I mean, the point about physicality is it's not like you can't have a back four of Robin Proppers. That's not what I'm saying. Where
No,
athleticism doesn't matter. What I mean is you don't need to uh, make athleticism more important than technicality. And if you have both, great. But if you're a really good technical side with some athleticism across the board, I think you'll be fine. Again, look at Celtic's back four of Johnson, Carter, Vickers, Taylor, and Scales for a lot of the past couple of years. It's not I don't think that's the most athletic back four in the league.
No,
So it's not that you
no.
don't need it. It's just that I don't think that is a more important factor than getting a team
The
who
front
can
six.
really
Yeah.
play. Yeah, you need. We've got some stuff coming out on the website start of next week about what we're hearing about the recruitment, how it's maybe changed with some of the alterations that have been made. You need at least probably two centre backs, in my opinion, and you need centre backs who are comfortable, effectively putting their foot on the ball and saying, "I'm the playmaker here."
Yep.
So that's definitely a recruitment factor. The fullbacks you look at the moment, Tavernier, is there some noises that he could have more of a future at centre back? That I've heard of internally. Right back, Dujon Sterling isn't back for still a number of months. Left back, we know about Ridvan's injury issues. Can you count on him? And then Chefty, I don't think is a player who can really play inside the pitch. But again, these are all the different factors that it's probably not that Martin could be wrong with this, but it's probably not that he needs two inverted fullbacks. That's maybe where
No.
it comes to with, okay, well, maybe we've got to play slightly differently if we've got these type of profiles as fullbacks and these type of profiles as midfielders. Raskin, we know about his contract situation and the fact that he's, I would say, likelier to leave than stay. Diamande is interest, but has got 3 more years in his deal. Connor Barron is a good enough player to be in the Rangers squad, but I don't think he's one of your starting. I don't think he's your dictating number 6. You have Bailey Rice there too. You go out and loan, does he stay? So there's so many unknowns, and there's also not long between pre-season and Champions League starting. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's going to be intriguing to see how he kind of makes it work, because we've not seen Rangers really. That was my point about Beale. That was probably the last time we've seen Rangers really play with 60% possession comfortably for a time. I know they didn't at the start of the following season, and I know our friend of the show, Martin Ramsey, would say that the pressure was off, and there is some validity to that.
Yeah.
But also we did see
Definitely.
with Hillman and Campbell and Kent and Raskin in there the foundations of something that could have been successful. So it's going to be interesting. But I'm quite looking
I
forward to
think
watching a team who wants the ball.
exactly.
For best
I think
or
so, and I
worse.
think the big thing again, you could argue throughout this period, Gerrard onwards, we have struggled to have a cohesive front three for any longer than 3, 4, 5 months, or a front four in terms of complementing each other's skills, getting enough goals from all of them, or getting enough creativity from all of them. We've had players up there that have carried the front line. We've had players that have contributed well, but we've had players that have looked like they might contribute well but been injured. I think we've really missed that. So much so that I really struggle to pigeonhole what I think we need now in terms of those skill sets. As far as I can understand it from Russell Martin, again, railing against possession for possession's sake. The wingers that he has at Southampton are mobile, they're aggressive, they can run with the ball, they can cut inside, they can go on the outside for we might finally be able to see wingers that can dominate the man 1v1 and hit the byline and cut the ball back, which would please me no end, because that's something that I've been missing for a while. So those type of profiles, we've got Oscar Cortez there who fits that profile. Whether or not he can do it, I'm not quite sure at the minute, given all the injury issues. But he's there that fits that profile. Danilo and Egaman again. Will Egaman go? Will he not? Who knows? Danilo feels like a number 9 in a Russell Martin type team. That feels like a good work. Again, issues there with availability, all those type of things. So there is a lot to do, but I'm really intrigued to see the type of players that we want to bring into the football club for the longer term, and then equally who we can get out and the money that we've got to play with, as well as everything else. I think that's going to be interesting. And just the last point on Martin, as far as I understand it, the style appears quite quickly. In terms of, it's clear what they're trying to do. So I think he's obviously a very good communicator. Everybody, hopefully by now, has listened to the Rest is Football podcast, where he goes in depth on a number of things that are really interesting. But the style appears quite quickly. He can get his ideas across. The feelings that we get from everyone that I'm speaking to or hearing on Twitter from Southampton fans is that he is a great man manager. He's a very good communicator. He gets his ideas across. The style appears quickly. You can see what they're trying to do. The key there is, can we get it to click consistently? That seems to have been an issue. Certainly early doors at the clubs that he's been at, getting it to click consistently, getting the right players in. It's all part of the same jigsaw. So yeah, it'll be interesting because I think you'll get people on board if they can see what we're trying to do. I always remember that first game under Advocate, 1998, or the first league game, I should say, at Tynecastle away, where we lost, but it was like nothing we'd seen before. I was only 12, but it was like nothing we'd seen before in terms of the style of play. You could see something there. You could see a team that was going to be modern at the time. So that was the big thing. I think you referenced it potentially. I don't know if it was on, not sure what show it was on, but that how deflated everyone was. That first game against Kilmarnock, Michael Beale, 2023, where you sort of felt that summer, okay, there's some players coming in that this could do quite well. There was a lot of excitement around it, and then it was just the same bad movie that we've seen for
Same as
5 years
Hearts.
before.
Same as Hearts last season away. I vividly remember coming into watching being at Tynecastle, and you kind of get like 20, 30 minutes in, and you go, "Oof!" Like this.
Yeah.
There's not much here, is there?
So I guess what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way is it's probably not going to be perfect. It's probably not going to click immediately, but my expectation or my hope from what I understand is that you'll sort of see the ideas very quickly. It's not going to be like Clement, who continually said after 20, 30 games, I'll wait until I get pre-season out of the way and we can see my team.
Yeah.
We're in pre-season now, so that excuse is gone, but I don't think we're going to be waiting 10, 20 minutes to see the ideas on the pitch. Like I said, whether they all come together quickly or whether we get the players that can do it is another kettle of fish. So that's certainly one to be keeping an eye on.
Interesting times as ever at Rangers, isn't it? It's rarely quiet. Well, we'll leave it there. We'll be back soon across a variety of networks. Thank you for listening to this joint Rangers review and tactics talk special. We'll join you soon. Hope you enjoy your weekend wherever you're listening to this. Thanks as ever for listening. And yeah, speak to you soon. Bye for now.